service. Well, they got like it's like a free streaming service, and it's got a lot of uh sources. Like it's got a lot of different stuff. It's pretty good actually. Like you want to check it out because it's got like
Pluto.
a lot of different a lot of different entertainment stuff on there, movies, music. It's like it's almost like it's like a cable service essentially, but it's just like these streaming only sources of IP from like bigger sources like MTV and Fox Sports and all the like NBC is got a lot of news. They got a few news channels on there, and it's pretty easy to navigate. It's just a bunch of streaming sources that are channeled up, and they have they're laid out like a cable service, but it's free.
Oh yeah, I had to check them out. I've been
check it out. But I was thinking about that though because of Pluto, but because they're not. It doesn't seem like they're very picky with what they put on the service. They do have they have a lot of straight up sources like NBC and CBS and stuff, but they also have like all these right wing channels. Like I think OAN is one of the channels on there, and like Glenn Beck, they have The Blaze, which is his channel apparently that he started when he got fired off of Fox News, and you can see I can't indulge in them things like that, but every now and then I just go through the channels. And no, this is where I see them. This is where I see them, the commercials. Because like you'll watch one channel on Pluto and they'll have advertisements for the other channels on Pluto. And you can't control that. So it's like you have to see the Blaze commercial, and then they have the OAN commercial, and they have like you see in 30 seconds, like you said, it's like a satire thing. It's like they have the black. They have the black conservative guy talking about, they say that you're not smart enough. they say that you're not smart, but like, and they have the guy, they have the old guy who's railing against being conservative. I have some old guy that's railing against the First Amendment, it's just ridiculous stuff, man.
Hold on, I gotta look up this show. Like, dude, you gotta watch. Like, you have to watch the show. The show, I think it's called Chip Kelly Kelly Conservative. What the hell is it? I don't know if it's conservative news. What the hell is this?
We make this dig into conservative media this episode.
Yeah, conservative. It's great. Like, I don't know. Maybe that may not be the one for this one, but hopefully like a follow-up one.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great. That's all. I'm gonna find his name because it was some off the wall. It just really felt like satire. He had like Trump's lawyers on there talking about the vote count, and they were just bonker balls.
He hasn't had Giuliani on, has he? He hasn't had Giuliani.
No, he didn't have Rudy on. No, he didn't have Rudy on last night. He had some other Trump's lawyers.
You say Chip Kelly?
I thought it was something Kelly. Kelly Conservative News. What's his name? Megan Kelly, Greg Kelly. What is his? I'll send it to you.
Is it on OAN? John Kelly?
I believe it's on John Kelly. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Is that his? Yeah.
I'm bringing up something. I bring up something on my phone now. You say your in-laws are in the OAN. I'm looking up a Vox.
My father-in-law is he's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he was a
yeah.
Trump voter.
Huh?
Was he a Trump
He
voter?
was who? My father-in-law?
Yeah.
No, no,
Oh,
no,
he
no.
wasn't.
He's just fascinated by him. He's just
Oh, he likes
fascinated
to
by
observe.
him. That's
He
all.
likes to observe him, huh?
Yeah, he's fascinated by. Oh, I didn't even tell you. You know, the number one. Dad's coming. He's flying in. I guess he's flying in tonight to I guess see Layla for her birthday. He ain't coming to the house, but well, I guess we're gonna meet him somewhere tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, that
Yeah.
should be fun.
So yeah.
I know
Yeah.
he voted for
What is
Trump.
this guy? I wish I knew it. Huh?
I know he voted for Trump.
Is it Greg? Hold on. Is it Greg? Hold on.
Greg
I'm trying
Kelly.
to.
I did see a
Is
Greg Kelly too.
maybe it's Greg Kelly. Hold on. Greg Kelly, conservative news. I don't know. The guy looks like he has on a toupee or something. Yeah, Greg Kelly. I'm sorry. Newsmax. It's not OAN. It's called Newsmax.
Okay, well, see, okay, this is just what I was about to say because Vox has a an article that I was about to mention, and it says that Newsmax has been going the hardest of anybody since the election. It said
Oh yeah.
my 2 days watching Newsmax, the network raging war on Fox News so they going at Fox News. That's how hard they are, hardcore they are.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. All
Newsmax.
of they all they kind of like they like renegade BDs or something like that. They're just like yeah.
Yeah, they out there.
they go they go ham because yeah, Fox is saying that the election was legitimate, the count was legitimate, and yeah, so they all turn against them.
Let me get this on the computer so I can put this up on the screen. Yeah, and Greg Kelly is the lead image here. Yeah, good
Yeah,
Newsmax
yeah,
host Greg Kelly
he was wild.
discusses why Joe Biden won't win the presidency. Note how the network has Trump's vote total on the left in the graphic at the bottom of the screen, even though he trails.
He
Yeah.
point he pointed some shit out on Twitter about like how Trump claim was refuted by Twitter.
Okay.
And then he says like what Biden's claim to the election wasn't. Like he was like real, like he had Twitter up and he's pointing at it with his finger. I'm like, what the hell is and he's all the way up it's like there's no there's no objectivity, like zero objectivity on Newsmax.
But I
There's
think
no semblance of even trying to be real news.
it's crazy because it's competition now. Like like at one point Fox was thought to be like this like states media, back in Trump. But now, like I said, we have OAN, we have Newsmax, we have all these other sources now, and it was seen that they're putting themselves in position to buddy up with Trump and buddy up with people who align themselves with Trump because unfortunately he's not going anywhere, unless the state of New York locks him up. And but his kids are gonna be around and he has all type of followers now and there's money involved
Didn't he yeah.
Yeah, like I said, money involved in trying and marketing yourself to these people. What was you gonna say?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a lot of people. No, I was gonna say, yeah, he no, didn't he fire the DA in New York? Or I can't think of the guy name is he Trump? Didn't he? What did he fire? Trump? Was it no? Didn't he fire?
He can't fire the DA in New York.
Oh, No, Trump fired.
You said
That
the
was for
district
3 years
attorney.
ago. Preet Bharara.
Who?
He fired Preet Bharara, U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. U.S. attorney, yeah.
Oh, the
Sorry,
U.S.
not the
attorney.
DA, but the
Yeah,
U.S.
yeah.
attorney
Yeah, I say he can't
for
fire
Southern
the
District.
DA.
Yeah, U.S. attorney. Yeah, I remember him. No, he can't fire the DA, but yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
no,
But
yeah, he is a
he just apparently he just fired
yeah.
some. He fired some. He fired another guy in his uh in his not cabinet but administration who
Yeah, man.
against him. That just came out today. He was going against the narrative of what they've been pushing. Here goes the New York Times report. He fired the top official responsible for securing the election because he was disputing the declarations of fraud.
Yeah, I see it. The PBS.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah,
wilding right now,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
He's just wilding.
It's just
I'm
it's not
trying. Let
funny.
me see here.
It's just insane. Like losing their jobs to me is funny.
It is. It is.
This
It's
dude
just
was damn exec at Microsoft, and it's like probably left a good like a high 6-figure paying job for this bullshit.
right. Why would you leave that
It's
to
just
work for
like,
Trip, man?
oh,
Like even if the job was that good, he gonna fire you on some bullshit.
because he thought because it will, I don't even know if it's about Trump. It's like, who is this? Oh man, I don't even
Newsmax
know. Like,
is
there's nothing
75
that looks
million.
honorable and trustworthy about Trump. I was with
Yeah,
somebody today, and somebody used the word duplicitous to this, and that nigga is just duplicitous. That's a motherfucker.
he's unstable, man.
Anything you
Anybody who
think of,
calls
duplicitous,
themselves
man,
a stable genius
it's
is
just.
unstable naturally.
Uh, it's just like that. I was just really bad. I just wish they could like take that motherfucker out the history book, or like I'll like just like take his painting down in a White House.
Well, look,
Like
it doesn't have to go up. He didn't put Obama's up.
just put like a damn and just like put a black band on his damn face. That's how.
Well, they could have a 6-year-old draw a portrait of him.
Yeah, just yeah, and like
They can have a toddler draw him.
it's just
That'll
like man,
that'll capture his essence.
That's why there's somebody on Greg Kelly. I can't do now. His name was like I don't know, some angle pundit. They said they who I guess still believe that Trump's gonna win, and he has to be the most orange human being I've ever seen. Or red? No, he was the most red human being I've ever seen.
Okay.
And it was because he was wearing like an orange sweater. He was on Newsmax yesterday, and he was bright red, and he was wearing an orange sweater. And he was just talking about, oh, Dick Morris. Fox News fired him for being.
Fox News fired him.
So it's like they're the rogues gallery. So you got fired from Dick Morris, who was on Newsmax yesterday. Got fired from Fox News. So it's just like they're just the
Yeah, they're
rogues gallery.
taking all the residue guys, all the runoff that
Both them and OAN. It's like they just
yeah. They play this. They play this thing. Hopefully, we don't
Yeah,
get.
they just
We'll have
taking
to
out like
edit this out.
it's like you look these guys.
I don't think so. I
This
just
is-
don't think so. It doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't
No,
feel
that's
right.
right. Trump attorneys.
The media are calling him that, but constitutionally,
Let's see this dude today.
they can make some assumptions, and they're making some wild ones right now. But hey, first of all, welcome to Newsmax, where we have not won this election. There is pending litigation.
Oh God.
Speaking truth to power.
And we're not going to pretend that those issues have been resolved. Now, furthermore, as I present you some information, I would say
So I'm gonna give you the name of the footage.
I'm pro
The
Trump.
attorney that was on on his show yesterday, who's batshit crazy.
But I'm not crazy about the tweets. I actually think the tweets
So who is
are
it?
brilliant. I'll get to that someday, but they really work on a lot of levels. All right, back to well, I'll give this to
Victoria
not going to be
TOEN
appearance. Let me good on that promise.
Now I'm told that we're going to have
SING. No, that's matter. ENSING. That's his. That was the attorney he interviewed on Newsmax yesterday.
Yeah, it popped up. Okay.
Yeah, she's back. Yeah, Victoria Townsend. She's batshit crazy too. Yeah, she's one of his. Yeah, she's one of his attorneys.
Questions he took.
Her and Joseph.
Age how he was at Donald Trump. Nothing about his vulnerabilities, and we know he has some vulnerabilities for sure, right? And by the way, President-elect this.
What is everybody with Italian name conservative?
It means nothing. You can print this stuff yourself, but they're trying to create the trappings of that. This is the guy. He's not. Again, it's an illusion. All right, we're going to go through some of the states briefly. This stuff is all to be decided. It is far more in play than a lot of folks in the media want you to believe. Let's start with Pennsylvania. All right, now right now, actually, the Trump team, they're winning on the federal side. They've got a federal lawsuit pending. It is basically being considered by the Supreme Court. The whole question of ballots received after Election Day, they're taking a look at that. So far, the Trump side is winning. Also, in state court, serious questions about who is allowed to watch.
He said Trump is winning the ballots received after Election Day.
Wisconsin, the vote is so close, we could see a recount. That could very well happen. Georgia, they want a hand count. We've seen some videos.
Yeah, he said a recount in Wisconsin wouldn't mean nothing.
Journalists should be investigating this themselves. They want all of the evidence presented to them as if they're the officials, and if it passes muster with them, then you have a case or you don't. That's not the avenue that's traditionally pursued. Let's take a look at Arizona. Right now, Joe Biden is up 12,000 votes, but there are some 66 to possibly 100,000 votes. And if they still come in at the rate they've been coming in, roughly 59% for Donald Trump, there is a chance that this state could flip. Now, Michigan. Michigan has all kinds of issues, and I think they were displayed, some hints of them, by this one city clerk.
My name is Tina Barton. As a clerk, my job is to run the elections fairly and securely. All ballots are and have been accounted for. There were no missing ballots. The accusation that 2,000 ballots were found is categorically false. As a Republican, I am disturbed that this is intentionally being mischaracterized to undermine the election process. This was an isolated mistake that was quickly rectified once realized.
Well, it's from riveting TV, Dave.
There was some mistake, and then she goes into how good her people are and well-intentioned, but there was an isolated mistake. Look, here's the issue, and it's a pretty small community, but
you said what?
Too often they just.
I said this is riveting TV, Dave.
Curious about this case at all? These cases. In the old days, they pursued every lead, right?
Great TV.
Now, their laptops are sitting in front of cameras. They're all just supposed to accept it.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States.
We can say that Joe Biden is on track to be the next president of the United States of America, the 46th president of the United States. You see that level of production? I mean, bells, whooshes.
Yeah, they got more money than you.
Music, all special stuff, but they need a lot of money for it.
He hating on them because they got more money than him.
That stuff back. They look ridiculous if they do. Believe me, that's driving a lot of it.
He shows like
the pursue these stories. All right, I got one more of these to show you about it. Calling the election and
I'm gonna leave that alone.
Molehill, a mountain of a molehill.
Well, our guest is coming up, Dave. So we'll set up for our guest. That's interesting, though. I think Newsmax is on Pluto too. So I may, if I'm under the right narcotic, I may try it out again sometime. But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, we got a director. Yeah, we got director Brian Schodorf coming on as we go around the top of the hour here. He directed a documentary called Chicago at the Crossroad, dealing with violence in the city and how so much changed with the violence in the city, and once housing was changed in the city and the high-rise public housing, a lot of it famously seen like in shows like Good Times and stuff like that. That one in particular, Cabrini Green, these houses got knocked down over the course of the 90s, the Daley and the second Daley administration, the younger Daley administration, and it did a lot to change the way that people lived in the city, and had a big impact on the way violence was sustained and contained within the city. So we'll talk to Brian about his work with that documentary in a moment. But like I said, media is a trip, man, and there's a lot of ways to get over. And I think it's people swear by a lot of that conservative media, and it's unfortunate that they don't have any trust in more mainstream media. They call it lamestream media and all that stuff, and they feel like that's a fight that they have to take on because they're not hearing the things that they want to hear, apparently. But these networks like Newsmax and OAN, they are readily there to to talk to these people the way that they want to talk to. They market to them. They get money out of them with things like Trumpy bears and all types of products to signify their love for that president and all that stuff and that way of life in America. And that's I think people like me and you, Dave, we see that stuff for what it is. It's not like we just accept everything from the mainstream media too, but that other stuff is like, it's dangerous, man. Dave, you good?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. I got to make sure you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
They got a little issue here, I guess. You may have to jump. You may have to jump out, Dave, and come back in. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm.
Are you good?
The internet, because it was a little choppy.
Okay, but you hearing good?
Yeah. No, but I hear you.
All right. Well, let's bring on our guest now. It's Brian Schodorf.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Hi.
How you doing, Brian?
Good. What's up, man? How are you? Thanks for giving me a shout out and having me on.
Hey, there you go.
Guys.
yeah, yeah, we're dealing with some connection issues here. Dave is all the way out in California, so it's not.
Okay.
We're dealing with some triangular stuff here, I guess. Down there.
Got it. No worries. Well, good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you, Brian. Really appreciate you coming on, man. And
Hey, Brian.
Hey,
yeah.
good to see you, Dave.
Yeah, and yeah, man, it's we're glad to have you on to talk about your film. All right, there, all the pleasantries are in order. There, but yeah, we're glad to have you on to talk about Chicago at the Crossroads. The film's been out for a while, since 2019, and actually, but before we get into it, let me see about playing video from the trailer on YouTube. Hopefully, this will be okay by this will be okay.
Sure.
Yeah. But again, let people know more about what the film is like.
I got shot right there. The funeral home is making a killer right now.
Homicide is related to the desperation of young men. That's what we're seeing in Chicago.
It's designed for you to lose. You're gonna lose. Let's keep this real now. This is about design.
The future of a great city.
We were concentrated in the ghetto. We were trapped and could not grow.
That's not a recipe for success. That's a blueprint for disaster.
Projects coming down shattered the gang structure. Gone.
All hell broke loose.
6 homies that sound you're a gang now.
We at war. Period.
This is not only my son, this is my best friend. He was murdered.
We're gonna go mad. We're gonna want to kill the world. These kids don't really want to live that life that they live. It's time to this new chapter. We got it right. Either you get it out or it'll come to your door and make you get it out. Chicago's at a crossroads. It's that pot that's boiling, stuff that starts spilling out, or we can turn the fire down.
Excuse me.
The new Jabberly.
Yeah. No ads. We'll get the ad off. But yeah.
For supreme sounding music and cruise.
Oh boy, where's that? Yeah. That's what happens when you don't have YouTube Premium, folks. So I recommend it. But yeah, Brian, man, we really admire the piece that you did, man, and the work that you did with this film. Well, you got about what 7 local Emmy nominations for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the film aired on the local Chicago PBS station.
Yeah, Channel 11.
Channel WTTW this past week. And it's been on some digital streaming platforms, Amazon Prime, Tubi.
Yeah, we saw it on Tubi, yeah.
Yeah, a few places. So, the film is called Chicago at the Crossroad, and you want me to just tell you a little bit about it, how I came to be?
First off, being the subject matter is something that I think Black Chicagoans are quite familiar with. A lot of us who lived through the 80s and 90s, we recognize the changes that occurred once you knocked down the public housing and you did these plans were made to redistribute a lot of the Black population throughout the south and west sides of Chicago. And you ended up having a lot of families that were displaced in other communities in the city. You had kids who were belonging to certain street gangs who were mixed in with other in areas where there were other gangs established, and that brings about naturally violence, because you have these you have long held festering street rivalries and stuff that pop off. And like I said, this is something that's long been a part of Black life in Chicago. For you, where's the genesis of this for you? Where does all this start for you as a filmmaker, as a man who, like I said, as a white man, as a man who not necessarily is from these areas? Where did you start about wanting to cover this and have this be something that you focused out on in a feature length project.
Yeah. So, and one thing I want to mention, kind of on what you said, is there's also a big difference between life in the projects in public housing and life on the blocks. So we certainly don't want to paint the picture that residents of public housing are bad people, because they get painted that way, in that light, many times.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to write the narrative that they tore the projects down, and these people, we had a line in the film that I ended up taking out where a young man, Joe Vaughn, said, when they tore the projects down, they came out like caged animals. And to a certain extent, the violence didn't actually see a direct result of the projects getting torn down. If you look at the murders, our murders have gone down since the 80s and 90s and 70s. But murder in Chicago is very stubborn. We consistently have high murder rates dating back all the way to the 50s. So that's one kind of stereotype that wasn't necessarily backed up in the facts, as far as in the statistics, that the demolition of public housing led to the increase in murders that we've seen the last 5 years. But what it did was it was a continuation of the disinvestment and the just overall racial oppression that African Americans in Chicago have felt since they came here in the 20s.
Yeah.
So it was more of the same. I look at it as, when they tore the projects down, I look at it as the third displacement. So you had the Great Northern Migration, which really happened in two waves, separated by World War II. And the first wave of the Great Northern Migration, it's interesting when you look at the map to see what families ended up in Chicago, what families ended up in Detroit, what families went west and ended up in LA, DC, New York. So, a lot of Chicago's ancestry is from Mississippi and Tennessee. That's why you have a lot of families who are originally from Mississippi. And the first wave really was, and this is one of the most interesting things I learned doing this project. I interviewed a gentleman named Timuel Black, who's a Chicago historian. I think he's like 102 now.
Yeah, there's at least 100, yeah.
Oh, man. So he came in 1919, and he really enlightened us on the difference in the migration. So the first migration was from the cities. So your Memphis, your Birmingham, so, those cities where people really wanted to get out of the kind of the Jim Crow world of the South. They wanted to take their families, get to Chicago. And, we see the rise of Bronzeville, which was really a black metropolis rivaling the Harlem Renaissance in a lot of ways. I mean, it was the Mecca. If you look back, you had Muhammad Ali, you had Louis Armstrong, you had the Queen of Gospel Music, Mahalia Jackson. You had all kinds of this rich influence. There was an area called the Stroll on State Street. And so you had doctors, you had businessmen, you had everything confined. And in a way, the segregation was a blessing. It was a benefit to have the money staying in the community, and you had certainly had people thriving. But with the housing stock, with the slums in the Black Belt, it was a matchbox. It wasn't going to work. So they just, when they decided to tear down these slums, they built the high-rise public housing, which was just destined to fail from the beginning. So that's the second resegregation. And then the third, obviously, was when they tore down high-rise public housing, resegregating people across areas of the city on the west side, as well as other areas on the south side. But to answer your question, I became interested in this type of work, this sociology type of activism documentary work when I went to Columbia College, and some friends of mine were from the west side, kind of, a little bit more akin to street life and whatnot, took me to the south side corridor, the State Street corridor, which at the time was in 2005. So you had 5 housing projects that comprised 4 of the top 10 most impoverished census tracts in the United States, because some of the public housing projects were so big that they comprised a whole census tract. So if you really think about that, 4 out of the top 10 most impoverished areas in the whole United States was in Chicago. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you had the Hilliard homes, you had the Ickeys, you had the Dearborn homes, you had Stateway Gardens, and you had Robert Taylor. So I didn't go all the, and they span for over 3 miles. So I really was introduced to public housing when we went to the Ickeys and the Harold Ickes projects. And I looked at the buildings, and the first thing I thought is, this seems very intentional. The buildings, the dilapidated state, kind of uninhabitable. It seems very intentional that this was what happened here. And I really became interested in public housing and how those, I called them warehouse-like structures. If you looked at the end at Robert Taylor, some of the buildings weren't even occupied. Some of the floors weren't even occupied. You could take the mirror out and you were in the next apartment. The gangs had taken over, but people still lived there, and these were still communities. So in 2016, when we had the huge spike in violence, you had a lot of media attention going to superficial, sensationalized, surface level coverage of violence. Okay, bad, gangs, look at it. Look at these communities. Everybody's dying. People are getting killed. But with this film, I wanted to go a little deeper and try to identify some of those root causes of the violence. And we settled on housing. So that's how we grouped in, or kind of circled back to the housing topic when we talk about violence.
Right. Okay. And I think
keep going.
No, you're good. I would say, as an educational tool, the documentary is very valuable for those who, if they don't know root causes of violence and certain pathologies that are, I think exploited in a lot of ways through the media here, who try to paint Chicago in a certain way. And, like I said, just a lot of people don't know about the impact that the housing made in Chicago. They think that, one thing that I really liked about the film, as you laid out the history, was, as you sort of said it a little earlier, that it wasn't a good plan from the beginning. It was really just like something that was thrown together. Just the construction of these buildings in these areas was just something that was done sort of out of a desperation, just to house, just to contain Black people in a certain way, so that the rest of the city doesn't have to deal with them.
Yeah, it was rooted in segregation.
Yeah.
It was rooted in racism. And as one of the gentlemen says that we interviewed, that's a blueprint for disaster. You can't govern like that. Yeah. And what we've really learned is, just from basic sociology, is you really can't control the movement of people and where people go and how they live. So the public housing was rooted in hatred, but it was also, there were about 4 main flaws. One, is the funding mechanism for these buildings was based on a percentage of the tenants' income. So when we saw, demanufacturing, the loss of these heavy manufacturing jobs in Chicago, we saw white flight, we saw the rise up of the suburbs, of the highway systems. The system really left a lot of people abandoned in many ways, a lot of families. So, that was one big thing, is how they were funded, because the government could not subsidize the city of Chicago, certainly, or the federal government. There just wasn't enough money. The other big problem was, which we actually had to cut out of the film for time, is they built the buildings with external elevators. So you remember you would go in a little kind of like a corridor, and you would get on the elevator, but you would still be outside. It wasn't enclosed. So, in a city like Chicago, where you have the wind and the rain and the snow and sleet pretty much all year, we're about to get into it right now. The maintenance on the elevators wasn't efficient. It wasn't substantial or adequate, and they broke down. So once you have those elevators that quit working, there's the police, and security can't get up to the floors. The emergency ambulance, where EMTs can't get up there, and then the parents quit coming down, because if grandma or mom is up 16 floors and the kids are down 16 floors, the kids are kind of on their own. So kids would do what they would do at that point. But the buildings were just kind of left to more or less, some more than others. But there was an area in the Robert Taylor homes called the Hole. And, somebody came, in the early days, you put in an application and you would be vetted. You had to be employed. But in the end, they would say, you want to live in public housing? Here you go. Go on in there. And they threw them in. And there was an area called the Hole, where all of the drug lords and the kingpins and whatnot ended up claiming. And it was just a bad thing all around. There's so many. You could do a Netflix series on Chicago public housing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we all have our stories, and
like 8 episodes, 6 episodes. It's a big story.
Yeah, we all there are a lot of stories that come out of there, and when you talk about the violence too, it's sort of, when you look at the numbers that that you put forth about how large these areas were, and the way that they could be tracked on the census because of how large they were. Like, it's not surprising that from what I remember of back when these buildings still existed, like a lot of the violence that you would see, that sort of randoms like scattered across the city nowadays, a lot of it was very much contained within places like the Robert Taylor homes and the Ickeys and Cabrini Green. So it was like one of the worst things you could do as a Black Chicagoan in many ways was put yourself in one of those areas without knowing anybody.
Yeah,
be there randomly for some reason. Like, that was it was like horror stories. Like, you don't want to be caught slipping in a place like Robert Taylor or whatever,
Right.
and because you don't know if you're gonna come out. And then of course you have public, you have like these mainstream depictions of it, like either the lighter stuff, something light like Good Times, or something like Candyman, on the other end of the spectrum. And then you just come up having all these preconceived notions, even as a Chicagoan or a Black Chicagoan, about these areas. And it's just a separation that was there, where it was like, these are the project people, and like you said, these are project people, and everybody else is everybody else. And that would seem to be damaging to the whole community as a whole.
There was such a level of distrust. I mean, It was day to day. So, we probably went and filmed in the public housing, maybe like when they were up and like, still going.
Yeah.
Or maybe like 5 times, 6 times. And one day, I remember one time, it was kind of so we were always filming in the winter, just a little safer. But it was a sunny day in like a January, and the kids were out playing basketball and whatnot. And people were coming up to us wanting to talk. It was just me and a couple of my homeboys, like who went to Columbia.
And that's the footage that's in the documentary, right?
Yeah. And so, people were curious as to like what we were doing, but they definitely let it be known that there were some people there with a camera. And a couple things on this, as a white guy, people always ask me why'd you make it? What's your perception on it? How do you feel? Great, another, Caucasian dude out here trying to tell the story about Black America.
Sure.
Right. Okay. 100%. So there's a certain level of distrust with these communities, with the media, with the police, with the educational system, and it's been built up for good reason over, like the last 100 years. So with me coming in, so all the windows would kind of be open or whatnot, and they would know that we were there filming and what we were doing. And one day people wanted to talk and come up to us, and the next day was kind of more of a gloomy day, and there was some ODs because a lot of them were main hubs for distribution of heroin and crack in the 2000s, 90s, and there were some ODs and there was some negative energy going on. And it also became at the end, it was the main center to pull up and get you the dope and, the crime, the things that go on with open air drug markets and things like that. So one day we went out and it was a totally different scenario. So, these were communities, but we can't, where people lived and generations and people's heritage was there. But they did get to the point at the end where, it was violent and kids did have to see these things every day. But so, when making the film, as a documentary filmmaker, if you want people to respect you and take you seriously and, bring you in, you have to approach it with a certain amount of care, with authenticity. And, people can feel the energy, whether, you're really trying to tell the story or you're trying to exploit what they're doing, just for your own good. So we always just try to, be real open with people and also let people tell their story and not try to so much paint the narrative that, preconceived notions that we might have about it. And, just kind of riffing.
That footage from when you were initially going into, because like you said, the building was still up then, so that was a while back. So was that when you were still a student?
Yeah.
When you were first starting filming?
Yeah. So that was like in 2005. So they were just like really starting to tear everything down in that time period. Like they had just really started. They started with the Robert Taylor homes. That's like Bill Clinton came in like in 98 and his Secretary of Housing came in and they were just like, yo, this shit is not going to happen anymore. So they took over, the federal government actually took over Chicago public housing and like put it in what I think is called like retainership. So the HUD, what Ben Carson is the head of right now.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay. I know he had coronavirus, but
you got, who could tell?
One of those events, man. I mean,
that was a part of your narrative, a crucial part of your narrative too, with this film. The way that things that these areas were being depicted by the 90s, and like the involvement of the federal government, and Daley sort of took it up as a big part of his campaigning, that he was going to make sure that these buildings came down and stuff. What do you think about that time in particular that led directly to the eventual closing of the houses and the destruction?
So Daley Senior built them, and Daley Junior tore them down. So there was a lot of corruption in CHA, in the Chicago Housing Authority. There were several, CEOs or presidents, whatever you want to call them, who went to jail. There was a guy named Vince Lane. He went to, he actually went to prison for a separate bribery scandal. But when it was going down in the late 80s, so they really started to crumble right at the beginning of Daley's presidency. I'm sorry,
mayorship,
whatever you want. So it was fucked up. Excuse my language. When he inherited.
Good.
So they had thought about what I did. There was a couple school of thoughts. One was a lot of the community members were like, well, rehab it. We don't want to leave.
Right.
We want to stay here. Well, some probably wanted to leave, but I think more than less, the majority of the people would have chosen to, if you gave them the choice, like if you look at the Hilliard homes and even the Dearborn homes, those are still up.
Yeah.
On State Street.
Yeah.
And they decided to rehab those. So, but the Cabrini and, and the Ickeys and State Way and Robert Taylor and, a bunch of them on the west side, they were just too far gone to try to rehab and bring them back. But the plan for transformation was total bullshit. Mm-hmm. And, they tear these buildings down, and some of them are still vacant. Some of the buildings are still vacant, some of them just vacant land. And they didn't build, the idea was to build mixed income housing, right, and bring the people back. They didn't even utilize the existing land to do that. I mean, you have the South Street corridor, and they're finally building like a multi-purpose complex, entertainment complex on there. They're not going to bring back the people from public housing. Plus, 10 years later, you probably can't even find most of them, or they may not even want to come back. So it was, the conspiracy theory, or the theory, it's not much of a conspiracy theory when it actually happened, was that, they want to reclaim this land. And that's what they did, but, they didn't do it very efficiently, even in that. They built a Target over on the old Cabrini Green site and some other stuff, but, it was just kind of a waste in my opinion, on many levels. The plan for transformation, it was $1 billion plus plan, and they claim that they built all this affordable housing, but it came up very short.
Yeah. And there was a lot of money that was presented or proposed to create this mixed income housing, and a lot of promises were made, like you said, but in the end, a lot of Chicagoans who lived in these houses for years and wanted, they just wanted a better way of life, a better way of living. They just didn't want these buildings to be so run down. A lot of them had to leave the city, leave their neighborhoods, or leave the city as a whole, because they didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, a lot of it, people ended up in Indiana. But, you could take that voucher and go anywhere in the country. So a lot of federal
housing,
a lot of people went down to Georgia. But in Chicago, you really only could go to a few neighborhoods, with an $800 or a $1,200 voucher. But, to your point, a lot of people made a lot of money off of, a lot of contractors and developers made a lot of money off of that.
Yeah.
And the people who it was supposed to benefit didn't become whole, you know.
Yeah.
What do you expect? What do you expect?
I mean, the voucher program was used kind of as a stopgap measure, and by the time the mixed income developments came around, it was a little too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, there was a lack of planning, a lack of true. Because if you look at other developments and other plans in other areas of the city, it's not so piecemeal. You know, it's not so stitched together. They know what they want to do when they develop things downtown and on the north side, Lincoln Park and areas like that. But when it came to these areas, it was just sort of a fly by the pan, see to your pants type of thing.
And the buildings came down too fast.
Yeah.
No one, you know, they basically went in there and was like, all right, y'all got to go. You know, in a lot of cases, like, we don't care. Bye. You know, you got to go. Especially when they were first coming down. I mean, that was a massive influx of people going out into the city. And you also have to remember that, like, social public housing was like a very social service rich environment. Like, you know, you could get what you needed. You didn't have to leave. You could get your medical care. You could, you know, there's school. Everything was confined in there. And also the people who, you know, the social service workers and so on and so forth, they knew where to find you. And, you know, on the blocks in the neighborhoods, that's not there. You know, in the film, you have the Firehouse Community Arts Center in Lawndale. And you have other great programs around the city too. But those people and those kind of boots on the ground organizations, you know, they have a hard time finding the families and introducing families to resources. Because, you know, we talk about jobs. And part of that is, you know, you have to prepare the communities to be able to accept these resources. You know, we can say you need community investment. We have to directly invest into these communities that have been disinvested in for so long and be intentional about it. But if you can't, you know, mobilize to get the job programs filled, you know, a lot of those summer Chicago job programs, they go unfilled. People don't know, you know, you got to go to this gymnasium at this day. It's a job fair, so on and so forth. That's another issue, but
yeah. What was most revelatory about, you know, because you say you started, you know, with this project basically in the mid '90s. You go up to the mid 2000s. Excuse me, I don't know. I'm thinking mid. But you know, over 10 years of working on this project, and you're working more in more recent years in a changed Chicago. You know, you did a lot of work, you know, a lot of footage on the streets as they are now with, you know, regular people as well as people, like you say, who are trying to actively make changes in the community, you know, Father Flagger and the likes, you know, the Firehouse group and all that stuff. What in your work at that level, what was most revelatory or, you know, just simply interesting about that part of the work?
I think, one thing that I think is most interesting or disappointing is how little the majority of people understand about, like, the socioeconomic makeup, the historical ramifications that we see today. You know, going back to the media, they don't know, you know, these people covering these stories, they don't really understand it. The police officers, you know, you might be a 25-year-old police officer, 30, you know, they don't understand. They're not from these communities. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what the communities have been through. So that's something. And you know, if you think somebody on the north side, some white family on the north side who kind of, you know, they know about the violence, but they don't really understand it. They kind of try to ignore it. you know, like it's not happening. Hey, it's not in my neighborhood. It's not next door.
Yeah. And they mostly hear about it through the lens of those media that, like you say, don't understand everything about this.
Yeah, they just think it's a bunch of gangs and like, you know, if you go to these neighborhoods, you're going to get robbed and shot. Okay, let me tell you this. The thing that really is most glaring is when you look at these murders, you look at the crimes that are being committed, you know, and they're like, well, weren't you scared and whatnot? And I learned pretty quick that I wasn't the intended target. Okay. All of this activity and the constant ingrainment of, you know, of negativity and what the communities have been in these young men's psyches, it's turned into self-hatred where, you know, they see me, they don't necessarily want to, rob me or mess with me. You know, the preconceived notion is that I'm a cop or I'm looking for drugs or whatever, or if they do, you know, it might be trouble, but would rather take that gun and point it at the young man who looks just like them or experiences the exact same things that they do, and, you know, pull the trigger, take his life.
Yeah.
And it's very telling, you know, how, you know, these young men have not been nurtured. They're, like I said earlier, there's such a high level of distrust, and from society in general, not just the police or the educational system, from the family unit, so on and so forth. And people ask me, like, you know, well, what's the solution? You know, should we, you know, how about more policing? You know, policing is never the answer. You need so many things that a community that keeps it intact, that, you know, the cops, you know, I feel like sometimes they get a bad rap because they're not fit to do all these things. You know, the police officer, he's not a clinical psychologist.
Nope.
He's just showing up to do his thing. He's in a mob already, and, you know, so they don't even get out of the cars anymore. So that's something that's interesting is the young men. You know, one of the young men in the movie, man. We tried to do some things for him. We tried to get him in college. Got him in college. That didn't work out. You know, we tried to point him this way, point him that way. It's such a difficult thing to retrain to that psyche, you know, and it's tough. It's tough.
What brought about that part of the film where you were, you know, because that sort of made me think a lot about like a film like Hoop Dreams or something like that, where you go on that, you know, it's I really commend you in the way that you brought about these bigger historical storylines, and you really gave a lot of information about those things, but you also brought it to the street level and the personal level in a lot of ways, like with that young man. And also what struck me, another scene that struck me was the young lady who you brought back to the area where the Ickies once stood, and, you know, having her talk about her experiences and how it you know, the good and the bad that existed from day to day when she was living.
Yeah. Thank you for watching the film and pointing all that, you know, those things out.
Yeah. I'm not just shining you, man.
If I could redo anything, I probably would have reworked that scene. I was originally in the film. I was originally like the narrator.
Yeah.
And
we'll talk about the actual narrator too in a second. But
yeah. He did a good job, but Malik. But you know, we thought we might get a more authentic reaction from, you know, by giving, you know, putting somebody in there who, you know, can get more like street cred for you know, lack of a better term. But so I actually interviewed her in the projects 12 years ago, the same woman who we interviewed back. So I probably, if I could do one thing, I probably would have brought that out a little bit more. So as far as the young man, Edwin, I had read an article in like Chicago Magazine or something that profiled a young man who was 16. He had a child, lived with his mom, dropped out of high school, was affiliated with a gang. And I thought it was a very precarious path, and the statistic came out that 40%, it's probably closer to 60% of Black teens, young men in Chicago between the ages of 16 and 24 are both unemployed and out of school. And that statistic really just stuck out at me. And I wanted to find a young man and follow his life and his journey and see what happens. So I met Edwin on a basketball court in West Garfield Park on Independence and Lake Street. And originally I was following a guy who was a little bit older. He's still in the film. He's the one who talks about, I've been trapping the block for the last 10 years. I can't put that on my resume. So originally I was kind of embedded with his crew. They were Vice Lords.
Okay.
On the West Side. And there was actually another kid named Zach who was out south. He was from Inglewood. He was, GD. And he was shot 6 times. So I met him at St. Sabina. So we kind of settled. So I was kind of jumping from story to story. Jovan ended up going to jail. I don't know what happened to the young man named Zach. Never knew what happened to him. And so I kept following Edwin. And it is remarkable that, he fell into the same traps that are countless other young men. And I call it the precarious path of a young Black man in West Garfield Park.
Yeah.
It came true. He dropped out of school, went to jail, had a child, and now he's just kind of floating.
Yeah, it's tough to see, but I think, again, for a lot of people, they just sort of think that young Black men sort of naturally are preconceived into doing these things, but it takes a lot to make a man fall into those sort of dangers, and it's not just because, partly it's because of nature and nurture and all that, but it's not just something that we choose naturally to do. It's like
there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
I don't think we talk about this as much. The pressure on specifically young Black men in our cities. There's a lot of pressure that comes along with going outside. One mother told me, we worry more about our sons than we do our daughters. And in most families across the country, dads and moms worry about their daughters. But in Chicago, she was saying they're more like military moms. And I think the biggest pressure is the constant realization that you could be shot at any time in these communities and be victimized by racial profiling from the police and different police brutality things.
Yeah. You mentioned the narrator, quite well-known artist Malik Youssef, associated with Kanye and Common and a lot of guys here, big name guys, and he was a producer as well in the project, right?
He yeah, well, a later kind of producer at the end.
Yeah.
We've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So no, Malik's great. Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, he definitely, like I said, his voice as a spoken word artist definitely helps a lot with the narration and stuff like that. Was that sort of what you were going for with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I couldn't have been happier with how I think he was very genuine. It was very true to the city of Chicago.
Mm.
Chicagoans connect with him. I think the only thing better probably would have been Common.
Yeah, his rate might be a little bit too high though at this point, man.
Guys, I'll tell you this. As making documentaries and things, I've done documentaries. This was my 4th film.
Yeah.
And booking interviews with celebrities has gotten harder in today's age. It's almost impossible, especially for like an independent person, unless you really have a plug with them or connection.
Sure.
You almost have to know them personally, and like they need to owe you a favor. We tried getting the interview with Jesse Jackson was a serious uphill battle. Common, Chance, and even Vic Mensa. We couldn't pull those off. It would have been nice, and that's the difference between possibly the film getting picked up by Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, but you got some good people though. I like people like GLC. Those are legitimate people, and people who are really out there in the city and stuff. And you hear a lot from the Vics and the champs of the world. I understand you reaching out to them, but we hear plenty from those dudes.
We were going to, so when I the light bulb went off, and I was like, so we had finished the film. I re-edited this thing 3 full times.
Okay.
Whole film. And for years. And when the light bulb went off, I was like, well, this is not the film for me. I'll need to do the next one. And I was like, well, what if we had GLC narrate it? But then we had this great interview from GLC. And the full interview was amazing. Like GLC drops knowledge.
Yeah.
That guy is an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, can we have him narrate and be interviewed in it? It was kind of weird. And then somebody threw out Malik Youssef, and it was like, yeah. And Africa Porter, who's a Chicago community activist, she was able to bring Malik in. And, we wanted an interview with Kanye too, right?
That would have been fun, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Kanye.
Speaking of Kanye, I think Dave came across another guy more on that spectrum who sort of is claimed to be aligned with you. I don't know if he really was though. But yeah. Dave, you want to go into that?
We want to fact check Maggio News. Is he
okay?
He
that guy.
He said he's doing a project with you in the spring.
Okay. So Maggio Vic. His name's Vic.
Yeah.
He's an interesting person. He's an interesting person. Let me put it like that.
You seem like it, yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on him, Bob?
Anyone that sort of devotes themselves to Breitbart and Glenn Beck and the like, I'm kind of, I don't know.
And his work is the complete opposite of yours. I mean, his site is called Bloody Chicago.
Bloody Chicago, yeah.
It's sort of exploitive.
Yeah, exploitive.
It is. So we licensed his. And if you see in our film, we use very little of the shooting stuff. Like most of the film isn't even, a violence. I'd say 90% of the film isn't even violence. But that we did have the few shots that we needed. And Vic, he's a Republican, and let's be real.
To put it lightly,
if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, our cities in the United States, are Democrat run, and if you listen to these Republicans out there, you don't have to go too far. Everybody's heard the man himself, dozens of times talking down on Chicago, Baltimore, talking about the outgoing president. And so there's that school of thought that, Democrats can't run cities, and in many ways that's true. So Maggio, he does it to kind of show how poorly ran Democrat cities are. And is it exploitive? Sure.
Well, he collects video of shooting victims and bloody.
He does a little bit of the
scenes and
neighborhoods, and some of his videos are interesting. He certainly works his ass off. I mean, he is devoted to the Chicago streets. He lives in the streets, and
he's homeless.
What's that? No. He's not homeless. This guy has some serious cojones. He will go out there and he has a thing for police officers. He kind of thinks he's a cop.
Okay.
See that from his site. You can clearly see that. And puppies. But anywho.
Yeah. Oh, you said puppies?
On his site, yes. I'm on his site now.
I mean, I thought in my new film.
Yeah, he said he's working with you on this next project.
Right.
Well, so my new film, when I was in, so I'm originally from Kansas.
Yeah.
And during this quarantine, I ended up wanting to, because I had never met a Trump supporter. And in Chicago, I'd never in the first couple years, at least never had a conversation with anybody who was a Trump supporter. So
in Chicago, yeah.
In Chicago, and even in my circles of work, it's not something that somebody's going to openly say, that they support Trump. So my documentary is called Somewhere in America, the new one, and it's a look at the Trump base and what makes them support somebody like Donald Trump. And if this is the America they wanted, and if it was truly made great again. So I went all over the country. I went to Trump rallies. I probably interviewed about 200, 250 Trump supporters over the past year. I tie in race relations. I do. We did a big piece in Tulsa at Black Wall Street. So it's a snapshot of America in 2020, the divided country that we are. So he is a subject in my new documentary.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because he seems like he's making it like you guys are working together on the project, but
yeah,
I can see where what he's doing, like sort of publicizing himself and he being. But see, and to that degree, I think while the overall subject as you describe it of this upcoming project, it's interesting, of course, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. But I think a lot of people would argue on the left or the progressive side that we may have heard enough from these people, and
not going away.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Like, you're going to be putting this project out, and I think a lot of people may look at it and be like, "Well, we understand how these people see the world. We understand what America they want. Why?" And you already said that you got a segment that's going to be involved with the Black Wall Street of Tulsa. So I can see that you're not just going to be one-sided about this thing.
Yeah.
So but like I said, what would you say to someone who says as overall as a project that maybe we've heard enough from the Trumpers of the world?
Yeah, well, they certainly need to be called out for what they really are and who they really are. And to do that, I think you really have to look at what events caused them to start to favor somebody with, the values of somebody like Donald Trump. And it also could be a reflection into who we are as a country. We were never as progressive as we thought. And these people could never get over Barack Obama. I mean, that was the biggest thing. They never could get over it. And to this day, I ask him, what don't you like about him? Oh, he's just too smooth. They don't have any reason to dislike him other than he's black. And they never could get over that. And when it comes, my overall viewpoint on these people is when it comes down to a few basic principles. One, when you look at these evangelical base of Trump, it comes down to abortion, it comes down to guns, and it comes down to infringement on my constitutional rights. All of those are alias for white privilege. Don't infringe on our white privilege, and we're never going to forgive you for Barack Obama. And that's what it comes down to. So when you see the mask debate, when you see all of these, the wall and the travel bans and all of these things, it all comes back to white privilege. That's what the country's based on. It's founded on racism, and it is still deeply embedded in the country.
I can't argue that. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to is it Somewhere in America? That's a Jay-Z song, man. Yeah.
Is it? Well, maybe he'll let us use it.
Ain't it, Dave? It's Somewhere in America or something?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think so.
I know what you're talking about. No, but a lot of the points that you touched on was really funny. Kyle and I were having a discussion about the OAN network and Newsmax, and
yeah,
one of
the
was for a conservative, PAC called the Mammoth Nation, and they talked about a lot of the issues that you brought up, just as far as the freedom to do what you want to do.
And they're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
they're all
70 million people voted for him in this election. It's a hard pill to swallow.
The next person might be worse. You're looking at people like Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, even Bannon,
Bannon,
yeah, he's done. Yeah. But you put somebody like Candace Owens in there.
Yeah. And we've spoken in recent shows about how Trumpism can be repackaged in the future. And I don't know, Dave, I don't know if you or the minds that said it, but repackaging it in a woman of color would seem to be
a woman or my
ideal way.
Yeah.
So Candace Owens could definitely, I could see that.
Now, what do you guys think about this notion that black men voted for Trump?
Some did. Some did.
The numbers are misleading. He said it's a little bit more than voted for him last time. It's like 2% more. So
they
throw around, more minorities voted for Trump. Not that many. McCubans did, but
they have a real existential thing about socialism, and you feed them those worries about the left and turning America into a socialist state. That sort of gets them going. And I think with black people, a lot of it is like it's a mix of sort of natural conservatism that we do have in our community, and just hero worship.
A
lot of toxic male hero worship that sort of exists in our.
I think it's the rise of chauvinism and kind of this machoism, and it's certainly not exclusive to the black community.
No, not at all.
More men also kind of subscribe to that same thing this year and over the last 4 years. So, man, I think it's just kind of a trend that we all saw with Trump and co-signing on his horrible behavior, unacceptable rhetoric. over the last 4 years. And this last year, look, he ran the country directly into the ground.
Yeah.
Whether you can say, well, some of his policies are good, and I agree with some things, and I don't agree with others. You can't do that. Fuck that. What do you stand for as a person? What do you stand for as a being? Do you have integrity? Do you have honesty? Do you have, faith in the world that you want your children to grow up in?
Yeah.
Well, if you do, there's no way that you can vote for somebody or still support somebody like Donald Trump. And it says more about you and, your underlying issues with racism and prejudice and suppression than it does about him. Fuck him. He has no power without you.
Right.
Truth.
Very good point. All good point.
You sound like someone who's been around Father Flager a little bit.
Well, thanks, guys. Are you guys in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. Yeah, and Dave he's been in Chicago up until about 6 months ago.
Okay.
4 months ago.
4 months ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Dave?
I'm in Southern California now.
You in LA or San Diego?
More closer to LA. So I'm on the border, LA, Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well,
it seems like you wanted to go. I'll let you go, but we're going to wrap up in a minute now anyway. But like I said, really appreciate you coming on with us, Brian. Had a great discussion, and appreciate the discussion. Appreciate being able to call on you as a guy who is out here making interesting films and everything. Maybe we'll bring you back on for this, but I want to speak a bit about your work in the NBA, covering the NBA and stuff. I know you did the Wayman Tisdale story, and that was very interesting, man.
It's been almost 10 years now, man. Time flies. And we've pitched other stuff, but Wayman Tisdale was a great NBA basketball player, really a great college basketball player. And any NBA fans know Wayman Tisdale, one of the best college basketball players to ever play the game. He was the first 3-time All-American at the University of Oklahoma, really put Oklahoma on the map. He was the number 1 player in the country coming out of Booker T. Washington High School.
He's from Kansas, right?
He's from Tulsa.
Oh, he's from Tulsa. Okay, I thought that was the connection for you there from Kansas, but okay.
Yeah, well, he's from Tulsa, and which it's not far from Wichita, where I'm from.
Sure.
And so I met a guy. It's all kind of serendipitous, but I met a guy in Coffeyville, Kansas, who was kind of working with him a little bit, and he was telling me about this guy named Wayman Tisdale, and I was like, okay, you know what I mean, and didn't really think about it for a while. And I saw an episode on NBA TV. Wayman had his leg amputated and had sarcoma bone cancer. But prior to that and after the NBA, he became a smooth jazz musician.
Yeah.
He was like one of the top jazz musicians in the game. I mean, he was up there. So he conquered 2 separate entertainment professions. Like, the story's so good you could send it to Hollywood and they'd say, yeah, this is good, but it's a little bit unbelievable. And, preacher's kid, left-handed, self-taught musician, plays in the NBA, retires, becomes a smooth jazz artist, battles cancer courageously, has his leg amputated, and fights on to inspire people till his old age. But unfortunately, Wayman passed away.
Yeah.
And I was blessed enough, to have interviewed him, be the last person to interview him before he passed away, and was able to put together his life story, and had a lot of good moments in that film with some great people. Michael Jordan's in it. He shares his.
I asked about that. You actually interviewed Jordan?
Yep. Interviewed Jordan about 10 years ago in Charlotte, at the facility in Charlotte on Father's Day 2009. So it took a couple of years to get the film done, and they said he gets like 100 interview requests a day or something like that. And it goes to show more about Wayman Tisdale and what kind of effect he had on people. And Michael deciding to take out the time of his day and sit down with us and talk about Wayman. And it was a short interview, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was cool seeing Michael. He comes in and he kind of it's idol, back to kind of like seeing an idol or a superstar. He's kind of like, now this person is walking and moving, and it's almost like he was walking on water. Yeah. Michael, he was a nice guy though. He was a nice guy.
Did he have a cigar and a drink like he did for The Last Dance?
You could tell he did the night before, and man, he's a partier, man. I think he does 6 cigars a day.
I don't know.
6 cigars a day.
And he probably was doing only like 3 when he was playing. He probably still was doing like 3.
A freak of nature, because he started. There's a magazine called Cigar Aficionado.
Yeah, they just put out an interview with him recently.
Yeah, and he was saying that he started smoking cigars while driving to the United Center for games, to help him relax. And I couldn't believe that he was smoking cigars like that and then going and playing. Amazing.
Yeah, some people got it.
Yeah.
Some people got something else about them, man. That was what did you think about, right quick before we wrap up, what did you think about The Last Dance as a work of documentary nonfiction?
Yeah, so I had actually, in 2015, I had actually pitched a film to the NBA Entertainment and actually got pretty far. And the documentary that we pitched, and I have a demo. I'll send it to you.
Sure.
Right. The documentary we pitched was called 72, The Definition of Greatness. And it was about the 72 team, because 2016 was going to be the 20-year anniversary.
20th anniversary, yeah.
So you got it, and this is like so we pitched it like early 2015. And of course, the Golden State Warriors went and broke the record that year. So it would have been perfect. But whenever you work with the NBA, NFL, MLB, they hold on to their rights pretty tight. So, the Wayman story, it was a fluke that we got in, because, even with that relationship, we went and pitched this. So what I sent you guys is like a little demo that we made. And
okay, I see.
Yeah, and they ended up not green lighting it. And then I went over to ESPN, and they said that they were kind of working on something already. Turned out to be The Last Dance. And
right. I was gonna ask, did you know about the famed footage from the '98 season beforehand?
Yeah, you remember that Air, whatever, that documentary they released in '98, the Jordan one. So it was 10 episodes. I mean, it was epic. It was great. The soundtrack was great. The content was good, great. Listen, but at the same time, and this is what I tell people, I'm not being a hater. When you have millions and millions and millions of dollars, whatever their budget was, $20 million or something insane, you have the greatest subject matter in sports history, probably, the greatest team in NBA, the greatest icon in Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman, and you're basically covering the entire NBA in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And so you have that subject matter, and you have unlimited resources and unlimited funds, and it better be good. It better be good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, but I did enjoy it. I mean, they killed it, but if anything less would have been a shame.
If you could do 10 episodes on any subject in the NBA or sports in general, what would you go after? if you had 10 hours to
Oh
tell a story.
man. Maybe something around like March Madness. I'm just throwing this off the wall. What if you did something about like the true meaning and significance of March Madness? What it means, go back and look in the history of it, how it started, what void it fills in people's lives, from the player's perspective to the family's perspective who are watching the games, to the the students at the universities, to the faculty. You could do 10 hours on that, but you'd have to dig deep. You couldn't just go and cover the surface level. You'd have to do the allegations and the possible school of thought of mistreatment of players, and why aren't they getting paid, and people are profiting, and the agents and all the dirty stuff behind the scenes. Like in the Last Dance, at least they touched on the gambling and his dad's death.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of rumors going around that he was behind his father's death. Not that he initiated it, but
it was due to debts that he had as a gambler. Yeah.
But there were too many holes in the story. Like the kids who ended up doing it, they weren't connected to organized crime.
Nah, that was a friend of ours, Tony Gill, helped produce a nice podcast series on that investigation down there in North Carolina.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it. I'm blanking on the name of the series, but it was very revealing about that whole process and how that went about investigating the people down there, and the ties those killers had to crooked police down in North Carolina and stuff like that. It was very, very good. But
I'll say that it was definitely fishy.
Oh yeah, it was.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
I think his dad had his own issues.
Yeah.
I think his dad was struggling in business. I think he had some debt problems. I think he may have had some drug problems. And then why he pulled over 200 yards from a Days Inn at 3 a.m. on a highway that was known as a heavy drug trafficking highway. And then how there was no blood in the car, not a single drop of blood, yet he was supposed to have been murdered in the car. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of interesting things to that story.
You can do it based upon that, and based upon that story, from what it sounds like, you could do a documentary based upon that story by itself. And the only reason why I mention that is because I'm watching another murder doc that kind of has similar alignments with that, the Sean Kelly case in Boston, which is
okay,
which
is somewhat similar to that.
What is that on? Sean Kelly? Is that on Netflix?
Yeah. It's about a murder of a Boston cop in '93, and they charged Sean Kelly with it, even though he was no connection to the cop that was killed, and he didn't get released until 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Brian, too, about the March Madness stuff. This will be an interesting time to delve into that, because for one, you had the tournament not go off for the first time in years, maybe in modern times, definitely this past spring. And apparently, I don't know if you heard, but they're planning, there's some early plans to have the tournament take place entirely within Indianapolis this coming year.
Okay.
It's going to be that, if they make that ground zero for everything, it's going to be interesting just on the face level. But that you might, if you make a trip down 65 to Indianapolis,
and they're having an all-star game there this year.
Well, they may not have the All-Star game this year. Apparently, the NBA they said according to the scheduling, they'll have an All-Star break, but they may not actually have the game itself.
Man.
Yeah,
Crazy times.
Yeah, definitely. But glad that people like you are out there helping document things for clarity going forward, man. So again, man, thanks a lot for joining us, Brian. Your group or your company, is it Schodorf?
It's Schodorf Media.
Media Creative.
Yep, Schodorf Media, and we can we can be found at schodorfmediacreative.com. And if people want to look at the film, they can go to chicagoatthecrossroad.com.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon Prime. People can watch it for free.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, try to see this if you have a chance, man. If you have any connection to the issue at hand and any sort of curiosity about history that's involved, and the people who are still being affected by unfortunate decisions that a lot of our leaders have made throughout the years from generations back. Definitely check out Chicago at the Crossroads. And yeah, Brian, appreciate you, man. Appreciate your work, and keep in touch, man. If you got anything else you want to promote, like say Somewhere in America, any of your other projects going forward, man, I'd love to have you on to talk about those as well.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it and enjoyed chatting with you.
Likewise. All right. Thanks a lot, Brian.
See you later.
Yeah, see you, man. Have a good one. And we'll wrap up this week's show here. Dave, man, what'd you think?
Oh, it was good. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was, yeah, it's definitely good insights. And clearing up the Maggio thing was great. So
yeah, he was a little worried about that, but yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It seems like that Maggio dude is kind of like that movie Nightcrawler that Jake Gyllenhaal did.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, he seems like one of those kind of dudes.
Louis, I forgot what his last name was, but yeah, Bloom. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Stringer. A Stringer, yeah, like a Stringer, yeah. Stringer reporter. Yeah, Stringer media, whatever you call it. Like ambulance. Yeah. 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 Kind of like that, but yeah, he's
he had more of an agenda behind his stuff too.
Yeah, more of an agenda. It's not about just getting paid, because he's got like a PayPal thing on his account, so he's not working with any news services.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, he's interesting, for lack of a better term. But yeah. Yeah, let's I guess we'll next week we'll figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, we got some more guests lined up. We'll see if we have another one next week. If not, we'll just get on and talk like we normally do. But yeah, thanks again to Brian for coming on, and we'll look to see what we can do next week. But we'll probably be getting back to Tuesdays now, so about 8:30 or 9 each week Central Time. You can catch us here on the YouTube. So yeah, check us out, man. WeAreRegalRadio.com, War Media, War on Anchor, all that good stuff, man. Follow us, support, share if you like, comment, all that, man. We show us love and we show it right back. But in the meantime, I'll let you at your babies, man.
Yep.
And I'm gonna chill, man, because I've been talking for about 4 hours straight now, so I'm about to chill myself, man.
Got you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Peace.
Peace.